Good morning. Good morning. Well, I'm Judy Z. Watts, the interim CEO and president of the National Co-op Business Association, CLUSA, which is the Cooperative League of the United States. I thank you for being here to celebrate. We're going to celebrate the co-ops in the U.S. economy today. We're going to celebrate CLUSA's work in overseas cooperative development. We're going to celebrate the 100th anniversary of NCBA CLUSA. As you all know, and you're going to learn today, cooperatives are diverse, all sizes, all sectors, agriculture, consumer credit, the credit unions, energy, housing, healthcare, food, small business, mutual insurance. Cooperatives are, and this is a key word, bipartisan. We're going to celebrate that today, as you hear from our new co-chairman of the caucus, because it is bipartisan. It is really something to celebrate in Washington, D.C. And cooperatives, as you all know, do not pack up and move overseas. They stay in the communities, serving their members, retaining and creating jobs, and taking great pride in their community member ownership. Cooperatives are based on international principles, and when you hear later today the survey, the public survey about cooperatives, I think it comes through loud and clear because we are businesses organized on those internationally recognized principles. Consumers, we have, Congressman, 70% approval rating from the public. So I think it's, with that I'm going to say, as people look for institutions they can trust, we're very happy to announce the Congressional Caucus later, hear from the co-chair. But I think it's pretty significant in Washington, D.C. We listened to our president last night. As the average person, working family in this country look for institutions they can work with and trust, we're happy to have a co-op caucus to use that trust and work with the members of Congress. To introduce our co-chairs, I'm going to ask Deb Troka to come forward. Deb is our on the executive committee of the board and here to represent the advocacy committee. Deb?
Thanks, Judy. As the Vice Chair of the NCBA CLUSA Advocacy Committee, I'm delighted to be here today to introduce the two co-chairs of the Congressional Cooperative Business Caucus and to recognize the bipartisan nature of this effort as they announce its formation here today. The caucus will enable all cooperative sectors, many of you in the room today, to convene and unify around the common purpose of promoting the central goals, values, and ideals of the cooperative business model. This caucus will provide greater visibility, education, and awareness of cooperative businesses among our federal policymakers, and it will work to demonstrate the impact of those businesses throughout our nation's economy and ensure that favorable policy is enacted that supports and champions that work. This caucus comes at a pivotal time in our history. Later today, we will be announcing the results of a survey of consumer attitudes about the role of cooperatives among other forms of businesses in the marketplace. While cooperatives rank very high on several consumer values such as trust, service, choice, and price, knowledge and structure of the model is still not well understood by the general public and those that represent them. We're excited to inspire our cooperative stakeholders to get behind this effort and support our two co-chairs. Representative Ed Royce serves California's 39th Congressional District, which encompasses part of Orange, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties. Representative Royce is chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and a senior member of the House Financial Services Committee. He's a leading advocate for credit unions, mutual insurers, and rural electric co-ops through his work on legislation such as the Credit Union Small Business Jobs Creation Act and Electrify Africa Act. And Representative Mark Pocan serves Wisconsin's 2nd Congressional District, which encompasses the south central part of the state and the cities of Madison and Beloit. Representative Pocan serves on both the Budget Committee and the Education and the Workforce Committee. Following 14 years in the Wisconsin State Assembly and as a small business owner, Representative Pocan is committed to using his unique experience from both the private and public sector to fight for the policies that promote job growth and support the families of South Central Wisconsin. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairman Ed Royce.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you very much. Well, as mentioned, yes, it's true. Cooperatives, they don't move overseas, but their ideas move overseas, and their products move overseas. Their produce certainly move overseas. And I've had an opportunity as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee over the years and as a senior member of the Financial Services Committee to watch those ideas take hold all over the world, from Africa to Asia, as the concepts we're talking about here become a way for people to help their local communities. I have been an advocate for many years of cooperative businesses as an arrangement, and I think it is a good strategy. And so I'm here today with you to announce this Congressional Cooperative Business Caucus, and I'm glad that Representative Pocan from Wisconsin is here with me. And I would just mention, from the credit unions to the mutual insurers that meet the financial needs of everyday Californians and people across this country, to the rural electric co-ops that are the foundation of self-sustaining civil societies in Africa, besides producing probably 42% of our electricity here in the United States. Through all of these arrangements, cooperatives play an integral economic role around the world. You know, if more than half of our farmers are in cooperatives, you see the same kind of arrangement. And I can just tell you, if you were to look back post-war to the state of the world compared to today, as these ideas take hold, child mortality has been cut by 2/3. You know, there are so many steps that are being taken that assist local communities, and really, you know, this particular strategy, this particular architecture lends itself to doing a lot of good on this planet. So our bipartisan caucus will promote the cooperative business model as a robust method of commerce that stimulates local economies and empowers its members. And we'll represent those from the public and private sectors who advocate for the development of cooperative businesses and provide a forum for dialogue between policymakers and those who share our support of this cooperative business model. So I'd like to congratulate the National Cooperative Business Association. This is your 100-year anniversary, and thank the association for its support and its efforts. Judy, thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague and caucus co-chair, Congressman Pocan, who is already having a good week with the recent Packers win. And so we'll bring him up here. He's been smiling all week on the House floor. I've caught that countenance. Come on up.
Yeah, it's funny. Beto O'Rourke, one of my colleagues from Texas, his child from southern Texas decided he's a Packer fan, and he's been to 2 games this year, which is 2 more than I've been to. So something's wrong about that, but we're glad when we get fans from across the country because the Packers deserve it. I'd like to thank Chairman Royce for helping to this partnership that we've put together to form this caucus. I think it's important to have a bipartisan caucus around this issue. I'd like to thank John Weinfurter, who helped bring me to this issue, although as he said, it wasn't a very tough sell given the district, but I really appreciate that connection. And again, congratulations on the 100th anniversary. This is something to truly mark and have a significant effect on the economy as we continue to talk about cooperatives. We all know the benefits of cooperatives. That's why we're all here. Our job is to help make sure that more members of Congress know those benefits of cooperatives and why we have them in our district, why they do so well, and why it's an important business model. I myself have been a small business owner for about 28 years back home, and this definitely strikes home. I know there's probably a little controversy here, but we're not exactly sure what district has more cooperatives, but I do know that Dane County in my district has more cooperatives than any other county in the country, about 80 different cooperatives. So something very near and dear to home. Hopefully we will have a competition among members about who has more cooperatives in the future. But right now I know we've got 80 and I'm holding strong. Credit Union National Association, Willie Street Co-op, Land O'Lakes, UW Credit Union, Organic Valley, just to name a very few that are in my district. And despite all the things that we know about cooperatives, we have a lot to share with other members of Congress. And that's why we wanted to form this caucus. So I'm just really glad to be here, to be part of forming a bipartisan caucus, working with this organization to promote our goals. And again, thanks so much for all you do, and look forward to working with you for hopefully many years to come. Thank you.
Okay, well, we want to thank Chair. Oh, okay, sure. You want me in the middle, or?
You should be in the middle.
Okay.
We're gonna.
I think the paparazzi.
Okay, all right.
Thank you again.
Okay. Well, thanks again to Chairman Royce and Representative Pocan for taking time away from their schedules on the Hill today. They've got a couple of more minutes, so if we have some questions for the audience, John Torres, who's the Director of Communications, will be helping out with this effort. So, questions, anyone? Surely you have some questions for these gentlemen. Really? All right, there we go, Amy.
I'd like to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Make sure you state your name and the organization that you're with, please.
My name is Amy Kokenauer. I'm with the National Cooperative Business Association, and I'd really like to get a sense from you both. What would you see as the top priorities in approaching your fellow members of Congress on this issue about cooperatives, about promoting it as a model? What sort of rises to the top for you both?
Well, I think one of the issues is explaining to people what the cooperatives do in their local community, for their local communities. They're of the community. And I think that also it depends upon the issue we're talking about. But I certainly appreciated the support of the rural electric co-ops as well as the credit unions for what we're trying to do on legislation like Electrify Africa, where, as we look at a template to use around the world to show people how to come together, they understand how to do that, but there are ways in which we can engage to do more to assist them in this. And if you think for a minute about the Electrify Africa initiative, which we had passed out of the House into the Senate, we're trying to get this into law, the assistance on this, imagine for a minute if we can share the techniques and knowledge that we have here, and if we can use the Overseas Private Investment Corporation to sort of engender that kind of support. Imagine a situation in a society where right now you don't have electricity as a young person to study with. And so instead you're maybe burning wood or coal, and the damage that does to the eyesight. Or someone goes into a hospital but the electricity, the power is interrupted. It's not a source of stable power during an operation. The consequences that have. Or you're trying to start a small business. Your cooperative is working there, but to have that electricity would allow you to be competitive, would allow a sustainability. All of these can be answered by the support, the good work that the rural electric co-ops as well as the credit unions and others are doing to try to move Electrify Africa. So there are initiatives like this all around the world that are underway. And so I just would say that by coming together and sharing, this methodology, this approach, this encouragement, and what you do around the world. I know the many delegations that are sent out, because I've run into them, actually, around the world, into Asia, into Africa, and elsewhere. All of this, I think, moves the cause forward and reminds people that this is not only important to people here in the United States, but worldwide. So thank you very much.
Well, I completely agree with the chairman. I think what I would add is, just making sure people understand within their districts the diversity of businesses that are in cooperatives. I mean, I think one of the things that we were just talking about was home health care and the potential for having a far more cooperatives in this area as we're looking at, the growth and the boom in that industry. That's a big part of it. So, the educational process so that people really understand what businesses in their district are cooperatives and what that model means. But secondly, then where can we try to expand cooperatives? How can we make sure legislation is friendly towards cooperatives? And I think it's great to start out in a bipartisan way like this, and hopefully we'll have a great, strong bipartisan membership out of it as well. So thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much to both of you for being here today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Judy Z. Watts.
Great. Thank you, Deb and Chairman Royce and Congressman Pocan. Just so you know, we're going to have our folks hike the Hill May 3rd, so we'll be there to support your efforts and help bring some more people into the caucus. So, and also, for those of you who want to know more about the Co-op Caucus, today you can go on site. It's www.ncba.coop//co-op caucus. You'll find resources, and this is where we're going to use the co-op community to build research. I'd love for maybe the research the credit unions do on market forecasts, the agriculture co-ops, if we can use this site to post things that would help our co-chairman, one, advocate within the caucus and recruit and becomes a go-to resource, everything you need to know about co-ops. So we'll look forward to working with you on that site to build the Co-op Caucus site. We also are going to encourage you, so stay tuned. We're going to need your help to recruit more members of Congress to join the caucus. So you'll hear a lot from us as we do that, and ask that you in turn, and it's not right here in my notes, but having worked for members of Congress in the past, it's really going to be important that when they're back in their districts, we're going to ask you to schedule meetings one-on-one and so they get to know you well and help support us in the co-op agenda in the public policy arena. I want to turn to now testimonials from, oh, I'm sorry, we're going to switch to other public policy. Is Lillian here? Lillian, okay. I want to introduce you to Lillian Solero from USDA Rural Development Undersecretary. We have, again, another incredible partnership at USDA, and I want to thank both Lillian and everyone who's from USDA here. Again, another platform to advocate for cooperatives is the USDA Interagency Working Group. And again, another dream come true for many of us. Unlike the international, where they can go, and I said this to the staff yesterday, we're jealous, those of us who go co-op development and domestically, we're jealous of that nice USAID pot of money sitting there for co-op development overseas. And we don't begrudge it. We wish there was more money at USAID as well. But the reach of co-ops that we're working on domestically goes across all federal agencies, and we have not had a go-to place. Now, under the leadership of USDA, we have a interagency working group. This year, we'll be through their leadership working with SBA, Census, Treasury, and other issues, so that as we spot other co-op issues that we maybe have to tap into, HHS, whatever, we're going to work with USDA under their leadership. So, Lillian, please come up and say hello, and happy to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me here, and congratulations on 100 years. NCBA has been such a good partner. I'm Lillian Salerno. I work for the President and Secretary Vilsack and the Undersecretary of Rural Development, Lisa Mensa. And just have to say that the co-op and the partnerships we have with the co-op is one of the great partnerships at USDA, and has been such a source of pride for USDA. And few organizations can tout a relationship like the one between NCBA and the other cooperatives and USDA. I just returned from Memphis last night, where I was part of a panel along with some folks from some of the groups here on rural opportunity investments in the Delta region. And when I was coming over here this morning, I was just thinking about, how important cooperatives are for that part of the country, where certainly in the rural parts of this country, where we have one of every some of the poorest counties in the country. And what we heard from yesterday were, there's a lot of people leveraging their investments. And I think the cooperative for this part of the country, and I think the cooperative model, which I've always been a fan of, even growing up in Texas, where even before I was out of law school, I was a member of 4 co-ops because of my credit union and my electric co-op and others. And but I didn't learn about it in law school. And I always think about, what I would have done when I started my own small business had I known more about the cooperative model, because we ended up, coming up with a corporation and going public. But what we were trying to do was make sure that the folks that work for us were members of our community. And I think the cooperative model has so many advantages. And I'm a big fan, and I think USDA, under the leadership of Secretary Vilsack and through your work in the Farm Bill, this interagency working group is a great start to some real positives throughout the federal family. We are the face of the federal family, and so we got off to a slow start, quite frankly, and I apologize for that. What we have done is we've done a lot of trying to get our federal partners to weigh in a way that's meaningful, not just lip service. Even last night when I was watching the State of the Union with some colleagues from SBA, they were working diligently on making sure that this interagency working group is something meaningful, so that when folks call in, that they get the kind of help that you need. So we have made a lot of movement. There's a meeting coming up in February that the Small Business Administration will be hosting on the interagency working group. We'll continue to implement it as long as those of us that are there until January are there. But our leadership at USDA is so much folks that you can rely on. And I just have to salute Chad Parker and Andy Jamalowitz, who are over here. And we have a new addition with Megan Moriarty, who's going to be speaking. And I probably mispronounced your last name, and I apologize. And I should know that since I have an Italian last name. But we really are putting resources in places that we need. We did have retirements over the year, and it was hard for us to fill them in this kind of environment. But we're diligent, and we're deliberate, and we're trying. And so really believe that we've made some significant gains. The cooperative development, as you know, is committed to creating economic opportunities, and we think some of the opportunities in energy and local foods has been an extremely powerful way to showcase cooperatives. There were at least 2 co-ops that were on panels yesterday talking about what they'd done as far as food hubs and delivery of local foods. As part of the ongoing efforts that we're doing, the Cooperative Development Centers funded RCDGs have always played a key role in delivering the much needed training and technical assistance, and I'm a big fan of those RCDG opportunities, and but for the folks in this room, that wouldn't exist, and we continue to thank you, because we believe that's one of the programs that is the most important program to build capacity. With the cooperative statistics and publications, we're updating several of our agency's core publications on co-op education and finance and technical assistance. We hope to, between our staff and co-op attorneys throughout the U.S., to update our agency reports and the state incorporation statutes of farmer cooperatives. We will continue to maintain the USDA's annual statistics on U.S. farmer cooperatives. The most recent survey of agricultural co-ops indicate that U.S. farmers, ranchers, and fishery cooperatives set a record for revenues and income for the 4th straight year in 2014. All of us love our Rural Cooperatives magazine. It's just beloved throughout the country. I can't tell you how many, when I travel for USDA, how refreshing it is to see it in every one of our field service agencies, and in a lot of course, in state ag offices. It's a big source of pride, and we're certainly going to continue that and make it digital and relevant for the next generation of cooperatives. It's a major source of information and has, in recent years, expanded its coverage on consumer food and worker co-ops, and has developed a real following among economic developers in urban areas as well. The next edition is scheduled for February of this year. We're working with cooperative development professionals and associations to create legal tools to help individuals form businesses, and Megan will be talking about that. And under the financing of cooperatives, we've done a lot of work. When I was the administrator for the Business and Industry Loan Guaranteed Program, we have a rule that hadn't had an opportunity to be updated for many, many years. And under that rule, which sits at the Office of Management and Budget right now, it contains several new provisions for helping finance cooperatives, which include loan guarantees for farmers' stock purchase for new ventures within already existing co-ops, not just as previously previously for financing only new co-ops. We have community residents will be able to obtain loan guarantees for purchasing preferred stock issued by cooperatives that they want to support in their localities. And then the third advantage of the new rule is employees of retiring business owners will be able to use loan guarantees over a 5-year period for financing their ownership as a worker co-op or an ESOP, employee stock ownership plan. This will allow selling owners to stay in the business, which is so important for the transfer and the succession planning for local farms. We thank you for your work. We need you. We want to be good partners. I think we've been good partners. We really encourage the relationship and appreciate everything you do. We salute you on your 100 years, and thank you for having me this morning.
Thank you, Lillian, and really thank you for your leadership. I know times are tough as things get reorganized and administrations set new priorities, and she's been a real partner for us and a leader in establishing the working group. And the regs you just talked about, from those of us who have worked in the field, it's really important because there are going to be new resources available for co-op development. So we do appreciate the relationship with you and your leadership, Lillian. So thank you. And I also thank you. Some of us have worked with Margaret Bowe for years, and we're very, very happy. For those of you who don't know, Margaret has been in Wisconsin, but she's now shared at the national office to help other states learn and know cooperative development in rural areas. So thank you for that as well. Really appreciate it. It's very helpful. With that, another good news story, and Megan is going to come up and talk about another project. And as she comes up, again, those of us who work at state level know that sometimes the barrier for getting new co-ops or changing co-ops are state laws, and it becomes a barrier. So Megan's here to talk about what she's doing.
Hi, my name is Megan Moriarty, and I provide legal support for USDA Rural Development. What if you had a tool that helped you decide the very best way to incorporate or organize your cooperative? Right now, we're working to create such a tool. 35 years ago, a USDA attorney named James Barta wrote a book comparing 85 state cooperative statutes. It was very useful for cooperative development for a long time. But a lot's happened in 35 years. States have enacted a new generation of cooperative statutes. Washington State's brand new statute went into effect January 1st of this year. So did new worker cooperative laws in California. Some states have enacted hybrid cooperative organization statutes that borrow from limited partnership and limited liability company laws. Different statutes allow individuals to craft cooperatives to perform a variety of different functions and receive financing in a number of different ways. There are new and innovative ways to flexibly use cooperatives to finance big projects and allow the participation of investor members while still adhering to cooperative principles of democratic member control, member economic participation, independence, education, and concern for the community. How do you find out about these statutes? From USDA. USDA is working hand in hand with NCBA and private cooperative practitioners across the country to research cooperative state laws and provide searchable results on our website. You will be able to consider your unique business needs and decide what's the best way to finance your cooperative. How can you assure that cooperative members retain control over their businesses? Which state statutes accommodate purchasing cooperatives, or worker cooperatives, or value-added producer cooperatives? Cooperatives can lift rural communities out of poverty, but cooperative businesses need the tools to be able to function as effectively as possible. The new USDA State Cooperative Association statute website will inform cooperative developers, state legislatures, and Congress as they consider the business needs of Americans. Thank you to NCBA for allowing me to share about the website and providing support with its development.
Thank you, Megan. We're very excited to work with you and help expand your resources to make it the best resource possible. Next, we're going to turn to testimonials from people who actually own, manage, run cooperatives. I'm going to give you the lineup, but ask each person to come up. I'm not going to come in between. I'll tell you who's going to speak and hear good, exciting things from first Gina Schaefer, who describes herself as an owner-in-chief localist of a few cool hardware stores. After that, Chuck Schneider, CEO of the National Cooperative Bank, will speak. After Chuck will come Bruce Carosi, True Value Hardware. We have with us Terry Ingram from Organic Valley Cooperative, and then we'll round out the testimonials from Dan Arnett, Central Food Co-op. So, Gina, right there, come on up, Miss Cool, few cool hardware store owner. Yay.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gina Schaefer. I think the name, I'll just explain it briefly because a few cool hardware stores, one, sounds a little conceited and two, a little awkward. But I created a branding nightmare 13 years ago when my husband and I opened our first Ace hardware store in a neighborhood called Logan Circle. So for those of you who live in the district, you may remember what Logan Circle looked like 13 years ago, and it's very different today. So we decided as a mom and pop business, which a lot of hardware stores are thought of, that we wanted to name each of our stores after the neighborhood. That's where the chief localist came in. We wanted our neighborhoods to be fiercely loyal to their local hardware store. So every time we opened a new store, we named it after the neighborhood. And so all of a sudden I realized that we had 2 or 3 or 4 stores, and it seemed odd on my signature line to say owner, Logan Hardware, Glover Park Hardware, blah, blah. And I felt like I was a little snobby. So one day I said, I'm going to call us a few cool hardware stores. And that was great until we got to 6. And one of my employees was like, we're not a few anymore. Anyway, so it stuck. And that's where it came from. I'm very, very proud to be a member of a national co-op, an international co-op. Something really interesting happens when I have to explain to a customer that Ace Hardware is a co-op and not a franchise. And of course, this is nothing negative against franchises, but there's something about the way the customer reacts when they realize it, that we're not a chain, we're very different from the big boxes, and that we're not a franchise. They listen a little bit more, they smile a little brighter, they're more engaged, they're not so interested in what they came in to buy in the hardware store as they are hearing about our cooperative model from myself or my husband or my teammates. So it's very, very exciting for us, 1, to be invited today to participate, and 2, to be a member of ACE. There are about 4,000, a little more than that, Ace hardware stores nationally right now. We are growing. It's the first time in a long time that the hardware co-op model is going in the direction of growth versus shrinking, which we're very proud to be a part of. And there are a lot of things that the co-op model, you all know, that have contributed to our success. Collaboration, marketing programs. I don't know about you, but there's about 35,000 items in my hardware stores, and I didn't know what any of them did when I started. Very few of them. Come on in, I'll give you a lesson one day on maybe the 10 or 12 that we learn about every day. That's one of the biggest things that I think I've gotten from my co-op is what are those widgets and how do I help my customers maintain their homes and make their lives easier by selling them those items. We couldn't have done it without the collaboration that we have with Ace Hardware, and also without NCB. NCB has funded all of our projects, less one, and they've been a great partner to us, and we brag about being a member of this really cool co-op bank every chance we get. So we're going to continue to do that, and we are in 3 weeks, we will be at 11 locations, and we have currently about 240 employees, and I think we're going to keep growing. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, for being a customer of the National Cooperative Bank. And congratulations to Judy and NCBA and CLUSA for 100 years. That's an awful long period of time. And you think about the great corporations that we have, many of the institutions, I think that horses were still racing cars back in 1916. And it's a long time and tremendous change. And one of the things that hasn't changed is the value of cooperation. Cooperation today is as important as it was back then. And if you take a look at last night, they were talking about creation of jobs and inequality and building of communities. All those things co-ops tend to really excel at. And creation of jobs. Gina's a great example here. Small businesses today can compete if they cooperate with each other. Before Gina came here to D.C., there were some 50 hardware stores, and they were all about going out of business. and she's turned that around, and now has built 11 stores. Do you think that has helped the community in D.C. by creating local jobs and communities and things? Oh, absolutely, it has. And we need more entrepreneurs like Gina and Mark to do that. And how can they do that? They can do that through cooperatives. Inequality, that is one of another thing that co-ops do a tremendous job at. They care about their employees. They care about their communities. They're not shipping jobs offshore. They tend to have much higher satisfaction rates among their employees. They tend to pay higher benefits, et cetera, et cetera. It is a tremendous benefit in the community to have a co-op creating value on a day in and day out basis. So co-ops are good for America. Another thing, last night, trust. Everyone hears about the approval rating of Congress at being at 13%. The approval rating for United States co-ops is what, 76%? That is really great news. The bad news is, in a recent survey, only 11% of the American public really understood cooperatives. That's not very good. And so we need to challenge ourselves to get that word out on co-ops. We tend to really focus in on the membership, and we need to focus in on the general public and explain the benefits of cooperatives. But the really good news is when those 89% that didn't know about co-ops were actually told about co-ops and what they do, and that they have a board of directors that are elected by their consumers or their members. 78% said that they would change their behavior, which is a tremendous opportunity for all of us. So it's good business to be a co-op in the United States. And congratulations again to NCBA. There wouldn't be a co-op bank if it was not for the National Cooperative Business Association, and we have been one of the best deals for the American taxpayer. Congress gave the bank $186 million. We have paid over $200 million worth of interest on that money. We have repaid that money. Last year alone, we have dispersed $250 million to low-income communities, in addition to the $1.2 billion that we have lent to all sorts of co-ops all over the United States. Name one public program that started by Congress that has that success record. And that's as a result of the National Cooperative Business Association. So thank you so much. Congratulations on 100 years.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Carosi. I work for True Value Hardware Company. I'm just going to touch on three brief areas this morning, and that is the value of a co-op to the individual, what True Value Hardware Company does to support their members, and what that value is to the community. Co-ops by nature, purchasing co-ops by nature, we supply goods and services to our membership. So we do that by collectively buying together to offer lower prices and better services. The unique part about a co-op, though, is that it shifts the power to the individual. The power in a co-op is with the individual store owner or the member versus the co-op or the company. Most small business owners have a choice to go either independent with no support or the franchise model. And as Gina mentioned before, nothing against franchises. They do a great job. But you lose that sense of flexibility. You lose that sense of identity. And that's what the independent co-op model offers. At True Value, that is one of the things that we embrace. I work for our members. They don't work for me. I'm their employee. So that is the different view of a co-op in the way that we look at our membership. It is something we value. It's one of our core values as an organization. True Value supplies lots of different goods and services, 85,000 SKUs or products in our warehouses, lots of distribution centers across the country. We have manufacturing facilities and paint. we are there to support our membership. There's other areas that the co-op provides goods and services on: logistics support, promotional support, IT support. We also have in-field business consultants that help the membership with merchandising assortments, store layout and design, product adjacencies, retail pricing. Our whole purpose is to drive more member sales and profitability. The more that is driving that at their store is better for the co-op. The last part on the community is that we all know that co-ops and locally owned businesses employ people in their town. We support local events. We also drive capital investment back into the local community. Co-ops are a part of the fabric of the organization. It's a part of the fabric of the town. In a true co-op, members are both independent and interdependent on each other and the organization. Only in a co-op is a member an investor, a customer, and an owner. At True Value, it's not just a name, it's a way of doing business. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Terry Ingram. Just reflecting on looking at this room, it's nice to have a haven in Washington, D.C. for a fish out of water like me, farmer, to come and to say a few words about our co-op. It's humbling to represent our 1,900 members that are growing every day. And I can see and feel in this room the wonderful nature that we're able to share our values and bring it in alignment with our efforts in the world. And it's wonderful to see that reflected here. Yesterday, it's quite the contrast. Yesterday, I was speaking to a room full of Amishmen in Burdenham, Pennsylvania, and here I am today with lights and cameras. And they got quite a kick out of the fact that I was coming to speak to you all today. But I'll share the same message I shared with you yesterday, shared with them yesterday. There's a real revolution going on in agriculture, and it's about preserving family farms. It's about keeping families on the land, and it's able to happen because of the cooperative effort. 7 men in Lafarge, Wisconsin had a dream in the 1980s. It was terrible high inflation. Farmers were getting foreclosed on, and they had an idea. They wanted to create a model where we went to the marketplace and asked for a fair price so that we could have a family-supported agriculture. And the co-op model quickly was adopted, and we've just 2 weeks ago passed $1 billion in sales from 7 guys with a dream to now over 1,900 members. Yesterday, I'm in Washington, D.C., so I got to talk a little bit about revolution. I'm a big history buff, and this revolution of agriculture that's taking place is exciting to me, and it's wonderful to show up on our farms and see the happiness that comes from all of us working together. In nature, as a farmer in nature, I can tell you that interdependency is rewarded, and it's the same for the co-op model, and it's wonderful to see that reflection in nature as well. But I shared a quote with them yesterday from Thomas Jefferson. I was reading that here on the square, some quotes from Thomas Jefferson, so it brought to mind. Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to George Washington, said, "Agriculture is our wisest pursuit, and it produces real wealth, good morals, and happiness." And they got a nice feeling from that, and it makes me feel good to know that the cooperative model has helped to carry that forward. The biggest thing that the co-op model brings is the community of spirit. It takes away, we're forming this caucus that is not partisan, and that's, with over half of our members being plain folk community, maybe a small portion of them being, I would say pretty hippie community, other ones just being very conservative farmers, but the values that we share through the cooperative model is perpetuated all across this land and sharing that with families. So it's our honor to be a part of this organization, and we appreciate the work you're doing here and hope we can help forward that effort. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I'm Dan Arnett. I'm the cooperator-in-chief at Central Co-op, which operates in Seattle and Tacoma, Washington. We were a consumer cooperative until the last month. We've converted to a solidarity form, so we're half worker, half consumer co-op now. So if co-ops were confusing before, we've probably increased that. But I'm also on the board of National Co-op Grocers. We have approximately $2 billion in food sales in the country, which is maybe not the biggest player in the game, but it's substantial. And we operate in, I think, almost 40 states now. Also, we've added a program at Pinchot University in Seattle on cooperative management. It's the first graduate certification in the country in cooperative management. So I hope people look into that. I heard earlier that if I'd only heard about cooperatives in my education, maybe I'd start my business differently. So hopefully more universities will pick that up. I'm actually teaching the first course right now. Anyway, at Central, we really look at the cooperative model just fundamentally as a model that respects the dignity of life and that builds reciprocity in all the relationships we have for exchange of resources. When we look at our principles and values and identity as articulated by the International Cooperative Alliance, that's really what we see, and we've tried to build our cooperative around that. And I think most cooperatives, you'll find, treat people differently and treat their businesses differently. Profit maximization just is not the core purpose of cooperatives in general. So as an example, at Central Co-op, we have the highest entry-level compensation in the United States among grocers, and we're certainly not the most well-resourced grocer. So how's that possible? Our entry-level wage is approaching $16 an hour with 100% coverage of insurance for staff that work 28 hours or more, plus coverage for spouses and children, not to mention a whole host of other benefits. There's really nothing quite like that. But it's the cooperative model that allows us to talk about those things. We also compare, so some would say, well, you're going to be more expensive. But actually, we do market basket analysis, and we tend to be at or below our competitors. So again, it sounds like something out of Alice in Wonderland, but cooperatives can operate differently, and they can build a better world. Anyway, I'd just like to congratulate NCBA on 100 years. That's a real milestone, and we know that there are not so many organizations that have that longevity. And I hope you have at least a few hundred more so that we can really get the cooperative voice to be more prevalent in this economy, in this society. One note I would say is that our Co-op Caucus is forming. If we're interested in economic development, one thing that we know is that the economic multipliers associated with co-ops is much stronger than what we see in other types of business. Not to say that we're anti-capitalist or anything like that. That's I have my 401k as well, but it's a fact of life that cooperatives tend to return more money into their local communities. And when we think about wealth disparity and income disparity, we compare much more favorably there as well. Our co-op is a good example of that. While we have the highest entry-level compensation, I assure you I'm not the highest at a CEO level in the country, and that's okay with me. Anyway, thank you very much, and let's get this movement really going.
Thank you to all our speakers for the testimonial. Now we're going to ask Molly. Where's Molly Moisan to come up? Okay, as Molly comes up, I'm going to ask her a few questions. I hope you tasted the coffee this morning and you noticed the label. We're very pleased to unveil at our 100th anniversary, our 100th anniversary brew. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be sharing it, and I assume it's available for anybody who wants to order online. So I have a series of questions for Molly. First is, what makes Pachamama coffee so special?
Well, the main thing that makes us so special is that we're owned by 5 coffee cooperatives in Guatemala, Peru, Nicaragua, Ethiopia, and Mexico. We are the only coffee company in the United States that's owned by our coffee farmers. With that being said, our main goal is to create equity in the supply chain. Coffee is a highly profitable business. It is the second highest traded global commodity next to oil. And if you know oil, you know that there's a lot of money made on oil, and our coffee farmers are some of the poorest in the country. So that's our main goal. We do certified organic coffee only, but we want to bring more money back into the hands of the farmers, and that's what our co-op's about.
Great. And how important is sourcing for your co-op?
Sourcing is very important. Because we are farmer owned, we do get our coffee beans from our coffee cooperatives. But because we're their brand, when we go down and visit with them, we are provided with their best coffee beans. We do, like I said, only certified organic.
Great. And what makes the 100th celebration important to you in the co-op?
I think that for us, the reason we're really happy to be celebrating cooperatives is that not only are we a cooperative ourselves, but we're really dug in with the cooperative movement in general. So our distributors are cooperative distributors. Our customers are cooperative grocers. We do a lot of work with NCBA, not just nationally, but also internationally, because our owners are in other countries. So we get to serve as a good model for a lot of the international work that NCBA is doing and CLUSA is doing, because we are bringing the farmers' work back to the states and, working really hard to make sure that that gets out to U.S. consumers.
Okay, last question. I hear that you were on the Farmer to Farmer. You were a volunteer recently.
Yes.
Tell us about your experience. And Terry might want to talk to you later, too, Farmer to Farmer.
Are you going, Terry? Okay.
That's what cooperation's about.
That's right. That's right. I'll come and help. This summer, I did get the experience of traveling to Senegal. I went to the Ourossogui in the Matam region and worked with a women's cooperative, Fede Balala. I served as organizational development specialist. It was a fantastic opportunity. As a volunteer position, I can't go far enough to say that I felt like the trip was well organized. The women that I was working with requested assistance in organizing their board of directors and getting their membership more on board with what they were doing, and they were ready to work when I got there. So it was a great cultural exchange for me. I would highly recommend other NCBA members to sign up, because I know that there's more work to be done out there.
Great. Thank you, Molly, and thank you so much for helping to produce our 100th anniversary celebration blend. Thanks to all the speakers today. We're going to wrap up shortly, but not before we talk about the survey. I'm going to ask John Torres and Alan Knapp to walk up to the podium and help me with it. But I think you've heard today, we're not only celebrating the 100th anniversary of NCBA CLUSA, we're celebrating cooperatives. And I think, as you heard from the congressman and our speakers, we have high trust and high value. We have our challenge in the next 100 years to make sure, one thing I want to insert, I've learned when I lobbied about co-ops, they're investor-owned corporations in this country, and they have their role in place, but the co-ops really go where the investor-owned really can't figure out a way to make a profit, and we can. That's a cooperative principle, and that's why it works so well in rural communities. But we have our challenges ahead as more and more the Millennium and others want to form co-ops. I'm going to ask Alan and John to help present, and you have a handout in your packet, if you picked it up, on the survey that was recently conducted, and then we'll have our challenge for the next 100 years, how we get more people aware of co-ops. So, Alan, you're going to go first?
Sure.
Present the highlights?
The slide. I'll take that one, okay. So, middle of last year, before our annual conference, or during our annual conference, we commissioned a survey with the help of the Consumer Federation of America, who helped put it into the field. We were asking about 1,000 respondents nationwide throughout the country, geographically, dispersed. We were asking many different demographic groups. Several key questions. We wanted to really get an understanding of what the awareness level was of cooperatives in the United States. We wanted to get an understanding of how they value cooperatives in the marketplace, primarily as opposed to investor-owned corporations. We wanted to ask them questions about cooperative taxation. And so we had a really good survey. It turned out a lot of numbers. And I think John and I, over the summer, we went through just hundreds and hundreds of pages of data to really uncover a lot of this. But I think there's a good message here and a good story that it tells. As Chuck indicated, we are at a time right now where consumers are, they demand high value, they demand low prices, good service, ethical treatment in the marketplace. And that's something that cooperatives do provide right now. However, the awareness levels are excruciatingly low. When we're talking to members of Congress about the cooperative business model, you get a lot of questions. You even talk to some cooperatives that don't know that they or people that belong to cooperatives that they don't know that. So really, it's an opportunity that we have in this country to really change that tone, to raise that awareness level, and most importantly, once we have more people aware of the possibility and the opportunity and a number of different policy issues, from healthcare to housing to education. There's a lot of different areas that we can really go in that. So we're going to do the slides, or do we want to? Okay.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk a little bit about how we did this. And so we commissioned this poll, and the poll had about 1,000 participants inside this poll. And we were going to walk through the data set here with you. So you can see, broke it down by age, gender, region, race, household income, household size, children in the household, and education. So our presentation this morning is about 240 slides, so bear with us as we go through all this information. But we broke this down a little bit for you, and inside your package you do have this information. We wanted to touch on some of the highlights. So the gender makeup was about even inside the survey. Age, you can see that the majority of those polled were in that first category. I think it's 18 to 24, 34. 18 to 34. I'm sorry, can't really see from here. And then going across in the other age groups, kind of even out there. Here in the region, there was more members from the South that participated in the poll. Do you remember why that was? I can't remember why that was.
I don't know.
There was a reason for it, but we'll get back to you on that. And then race here. This is the breakdown for race. And income. That's household size. So these are 3 or more individuals living inside the household, not necessarily children. There, and then here's the children in the household. And the education level. And so here's the highlighted outcomes here for this. Yes.
I think I was supposed to read through that.
That's okay. That's okay. So the outcomes, the majority of Americans strongly believe that co-ops are beneficial to consumers, despite their general lack of awareness. And we heard that today throughout the different presentations, that there is a general lack of awareness. But even among co-op members, awareness of the co-op model is not always apparent. And that's part of the education process that we need to get in there. Well over half of those who said they don't belong to a co-op still indicate that they think co-ops are highly valuable in the marketplace, suggesting that while consumer awareness is still very low, consumer confidence is still quite high. So the study actually, or the survey actually revealed that 25% here identify as a co-op member, meaning they know that they are part of a co-op. And the folks who are actually members of co-ops were a lot higher, in the 43% range. So even the folks who are not identifying as being part of a co-op. So familiarity. Same here, and this is what we've been talking about today, and this is where the education portion really starts to kick in. 7% were familiar with the co-op model and the co-op philosophy. Conversely, 70% believe co-ops help consumers. So even though there is not a clear awareness of what a cooperative is or the philosophy of a cooperative, the awareness, the sentiment of the cooperative model, people believe that they are more trustworthy, and they believe that they are highly desirable, even without knowing.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Mm-hmm. So then we asked, the demographics was an interesting category that we asked. So familiarity and philosophy of cooperatives membership grew as education, household income, and age increased. The survey found that most members are age 65 plus, college educated, and earning more than $100,000 per year. We also found that the results, the understanding and knowledge grew as those increased, but there was an equal decrease among those that were younger and low income, and people of color, minorities didn't know as much. And then we asked questions for for-profit businesses scored higher only in several categories, only by 5 percentage points. The American public may not have a detailed understanding of cooperatives, but they have a very positive feeling towards cooperatives. Again, 1 in 3 members, or 1 in 3 Americans nationwide belong to a cooperative. 75% of our nation's landmass is served by electric co-ops, and more than 100 people are identified as credit union members. As we look at how to grow the Congressional Cooperative Business Caucus, that's a very powerful demographic that we have, and that we encourage, folks throughout the country. We do have a lot of strength in numbers throughout the country, and we're geographically dispersed, so it's good.
So you can see the way here says co-ops rated higher than other businesses in each of the following indicators here, and all of this is in your handout, but we did want to put it up here so you can see the breakdown there. But what are the key takeaways? The key takeaways is that there's an awareness gap, and the survey results indicate that even among cooperatives, there's only 25 identify as cooperative members. But there's positive vibes. And that's a good thing. Positive vibes are a good thing. The positive vibes, most people have a good feeling about cooperatives. And even though they don't know or they're not very familiar with the philosophy of cooperatives, the large majority, 70%, said that cooperatives are helpful to consumers. So we have some education that we have to do as a national association, and working with our members and the general public to educate on what the cooperative model is and why it's important. And then we have the demographic insight. And demographic insight, familiarity with the organization and philosophy of cooperatives and co-op members grew as education and household income and age increased. The survey found that most co-op members are age 65 and over, college educated, and earning more than $100,000 per year. Survey results suggest that knowledge and understanding of co-ops is the narrowest among young adults. And I think that's where the education portion for higher education really comes out and stands out quite strong. We have not only the general public education that we have to be aware of, but we also have the colleges and universities also that need to have a curriculum base for cooperatives. There, and so you'll find all of the full survey results on our website at www.ncba.coop. And if you have any questions, Al and I are available after to have that conversation with you. So thank you very much.
Sorry, that was part of my script. I threw him for a curve, but I think you understand a lot of good work is done. We're well positioned. And I'm going to wrap up by saying, again, thank you to everyone who came today. The 70%, when I was preparing my remarks before I introduced the congressman, I was going to be a little bit flippant and say, you know, Congressman, you can work with us. Your approval rating is about 13%, I think. But I decided, because I've spent my life around public policy, not to be flippant, because it's a serious issue. And when I thought about it this morning, really, if we do have 70%, the co-ops have 70% trust by the American populace at large, the co-op caucus really, by partnering with Congress, we need to reinstill trust in organizations, and I think it's just such a prime opportunity for the members of Congress to understand, this is how we're going to use the survey, what trust we bring to the marketplace, what hope we can bring in terms of jobs, and Chuck, you mentioned inequality, tackling those big issues. So rather than being flippant about it, we really can help. Well, we think that we need their help. I think if we step back and look at it, they need our help, and not just they, but our members can help. And we need to restore trust in institutions. And how do you have access to market? How can you own and control access to organic food if you wish? How can you empower people to be part of the economy, to own their houses, to get consumer credit through the credit unions? So it's really quite a remarkable story. And if we position ourselves right, we will help members of Congress, and I personally feel it's very important to reinstill trust in our democracies. So, and that's the spirit, I think, of the president's statement last night. So we've come a long way. Co-ops, we've had 100 years. Thank you all for helping us celebrate. But it isn't just about NCBA CLUSA. What I said to the staff yesterday as we unveiled our celebration or activities, we're stewards. A lot of people came before us, 100 years. I look at the names, the big names. My hero is Wally Campbell, who helped to establish CARE. And that's my favorite story. Think about it. After World War II, Cooperative Americans for Remittance in Europe, that's CARE. It's a brand name. Some of the stewards that we have in the room that came before us, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge both Liz Bailey, who served and helped position us for the Co-op Caucus, Paula Hazen, who was CEO of NCBA for a very long time, and we all dreamed about Co-op Caucus. Richard Dines is here, as you have Lita Mack. So there are a lot of people that worked for decades to get us to this point. Where I'm happy and pleased to see that we have the opportunity to create the Co-op Caucus. You'll find there's all sorts of websites. Hopefully the website information are in the packet so you can join us in helping. But we're at a pivotal moment, and I say if we're stewards, a lot of heroes came before us. We're it now. We're it. We need to pivot. We need to make sure that we're around for another 100 years, but that we use this co-op model and the public trust to improve lives of people in the United States, address some of the thorny issues, be proud of what we've accomplished, and go forward. So with that, really thank you so much for being here. This is a kickoff. It's not the end of the game. You're going to hear from us throughout the whole year. There's a lot of activities planned. Every month we're going to focus on certain types of co-ops in the U.S. economy. There will be profiles on our website. We hope to have, fingers crossed, I shouldn't announce it, but a co-op village on the mall in October where everybody can come set up tents and have fun. So we're going to be in touch with you a lot. And please don't get sick of us. Please look at it as the opportunity to help. We're helping you create a framework in which we all benefit, and the general public as well, as we move our co-op model, which we love and we think can do so much good, into the broader community and with members of Congress. So thank you all, and a round of applause for you all to be here. With that, if you have questions, we'll be around unless anybody has a burning question or comment right now that you want to make. Seeing none, please enjoy the coffee and safe journey home.